Hello, Captain Graham here. I'll give an introduction to today's pieces, Fantasia and Fugue in C minor by Bach, BWV 906. The Fantasia is one of Bach's more well-known miscellaneous pieces, and it tends to find its way into a lot of piano albums. Unlike most of these miscellaneous pieces, it's come down to us in two actual autographed manuscripts, one with the Fantasia alone and one reckoned to be from the late 1730s with an incomplete fugue. I say rarely because not even well-known pieces such as the chromatic Fantasia and fugue, English and French suites, partitas in their final form, or the Goldberg variations survive in manuscript copies. The Fantasia and fugue stands out in other ways. The Fantasia is by Bach standards modern in conception, written in a simpler texture, virtuoso elements held together with periodic phrasing, rather than the endless weaving of counterpoint. It's in two repeated halves, but excuse me for skipping the repeat this time. The opening phrases make a reprise near the end in the home key, echoing the modern sonata structures that were starting to circulate at that time. And we can see this in some other late keyboard works of Bach, such as the Prelude in D from the Waltz and Clavier Book 2, and the Fantasia and Fugue in A minor, another late work. Also striking are the downward arpeggios on which the main theme are built. Some intensive chromatic writing in between, again all in a very periodic phrasing, and a dramatic break in the triplet rhythm for a half close. After this, Bach indulges in some extensive cross hands action. There are not many of his pieces before the Goldberg variations making use of cross hands. The Prelude in B flat from the Waltz and Clavier Book 2 and the fugue from Partita No. 1 in B flat come to mind. Bach, in typically rigorous fashion, has the left crossing the right in the first half of the piece and the right crossing the left in the second half. Overall, the Fantasia stands out for its terseness, virtuosity, and tightness of structure. You might think then that Fantasia is a misnomer, but actually Bach commonly used the term. For example, the three-part sinfonias, companions to the two-part inventions, were originally called fantasies. The overlapping of hands before the last section is particularly impossible on the narrow keys of a harpsichord manual. As in the Goldberg variations, I'm wondering whether he meant two manuals for this passage or similar. The fugue that accompanies the Fantasia consists of only 47 bars before the writing on the manuscript breaks off with the first beat of bar 48. The manuscript is a good copy, so presumably the fugue was actually finished, but for some reason he didn't continue writing it out here. There's an exposition with the chromatic crawling subject to extreme discordant development. The sourness of the harmonies is extreme even for Bach. To have such a sour and academic sounding fugue after such a modern first movement, but Bach has more surprises in store. He does not write a continuous movement, but takes a sectional approach, ending the first section in a flurry of semiquavers and then a chordal close that reminds more of the modern style galant of his sons. Bach then embarks on a new theme which is developed with some more chromatic figuration and surprisingly more cross hands, which is taken to a degree I think unique among his fugues, keyboard fugues I should say. Presumably this is the middle section in what was intended to be a three-part da capo structure, where the first section would be repeated note for note, but it's not 100% clear what Bach's intention was with the structure. The second section theme looks like it was intended to be used in alternation with the first subject, which makes an appearance just as the manuscript peters out. As this entry of the first subject is in the home key of C minor, I tacked on a 2-bar conclusion of my own to abruptly end the piece rather than keep you all hanging in mid-air. Some scholars have composed extensive continuations themselves. Who knows, I might try to do one myself one day. I struggle to play these works a little, but anyway, I hope you enjoy these insights into one of Bach's most familiar miscellaneous later keyboard works, coupled with a real Bach rarity.